Hi, I'm Randall with KravMagaTraining.com. In this Krav Maga Fundamentals video, I'm going to go over the two things you can do to fix almost every balance issue you might have regardless of the technique you're practicing. Those two solutions are get your feet farther apart or wider, and or bend your knees and lower your center of gravity. So I'm going to explain in great detail why these two things are important, how they fix all your balance issues, and some drills that you can do to improve upon these skills. Okay, first, to illustrate the importance of keeping your feet wide, regardless if you're in a fighting stance or a neutral stance, if you're starting a self-defense technique, is I'm going to use these two small shields to demonstrate the importance of keeping your face or your feet wide. Notice these two small kick shields, how the bottoms of the connecting points on the ground are very close together. Because of this is a very unstable pad. So to illustrate this, watch what happens. Notice I didn't even touch it. So like the big bad wolf, all I did was blew on the damn things and they fell right over. Now, a simple solution for this is all we're going to do now is put the bottoms a little farther apart here. Let's see what happens this time. No fucking way, it's going to stay in place. Well, your fighting stance is the same way. If I get my feet a little wider apart, all of a sudden I'm more stable. If I'm doing a self-defense technique and I start neutral stance, I get my feet wider, it's going to do the exact same thing. It's going to fix any particular balance issues you might have anytime you're doing a fighting or self-defense technique. So let me show you a drill that I like to teach my private lesson students, especially in their lessons, or my group-led students. It's a homework assignment that I give them that I tell them to practice on their own. This is a good way to force them to be more consistent about keeping their feet a little bit wider, especially if they have a lot of trouble doing that, or they come from a style where they tend to be more bladed, like boxing or karate. To untrain that habit, to get them to get into a wider stance, I use this drill. If they're a little smaller student, I'll tend to line up these tie pads like this. If they're a little bit closer to my size, I'll use these small kick shields. And the purpose of this drill is you get your fighting stance and you practice moving forward and back. And I have to keep my feet wide, because if I don't, oh crap, I hit the pads and that's my feedback telling me that I'm not keeping my stance wide enough. So, with that in mind, I can practice moving in any direction. Forward steps, retreat steps, I can turn sideways and move laterally from either stance. I'll also have my students maybe practice their combatives from this position, but even with movement, and that could be any type of combative. This is just a great drill to force you to keep your feet shoulder apart. Now, if you're training at home and you don't have pads like this, just find something else that's a similar size. Maybe a roll of pillows that are appropriate size, or at the very least, grab some masking tape, throw it down on the floor, and use that as a guide. But I love this drill because this gives you instant feedback if you are not keeping your feet wide enough apart in your stance. So next, I'm going to discuss the importance of bending your knees and why bending your knees in your neutral stance or your fighting stance is also going to improve your balance. The reason why it does that is because it lowers your center of gravity. What your center of gravity means that generally for most people, your center of gravity is going to be somewhere around your core midsection area. If it's a big dude who bench presses all day long and skips leg day, his center of gravity might be a little higher because he's too top heavy. Some ladies, because they tend to carry more weight in their lower body, have bigger legs, bigger hips, but a smaller upper body, their center of gravity might be a bit lower. But for the most part, most people's center of gravity is going to be somewhere within this range. Well, for me, my center of gravity is about right here. Now notice if I bend my knees, how it lowers that center of gravity, and that makes me more stable and improves my balance. And the best way to illustrate that is with this bag right here. I think this bag, supposedly when it's filled up, 250, 270 pounds, but I guarantee at least 90% of that weight is all right here in the base. So that's why it's hard to tip it over, because the center of gravity is so low on this bag. Now, if we were to take this bag, flip it upside down, and even if we could do it, if we could balance it on this part, and this base was on the top and super heavy, you literally probably could do this, or a stiff breeze would probably knock the whole damn thing over, because the center of gravity is way too high and there's too much up here. So this bag is the best illustration of why bending your knees, lower your center of gravity, in this case the center of gravity is super low, makes it very stable and hard to knock over. Your balance is the same way. Now here's a drill to help you keep your knees bent and keep your center of gravity low while you're moving in your fighting stance. So in this case, I've just attached this slip ball to two different bags, but if you're training on your own, you can use anything. Just grab a piece of string or rope, attach two different things. I would suggest putting it at about chin level or a little bit higher. And it's a very simple drill. All I do is get my fighting stance, bend my knees, keep my feet nice and wide, and indirectly this will also force you to keep your chin down and keep your body rounded, which is a good thing to protect yourself. And then I'm just going to practice moving. If I do it correctly, I should never touch the rope. If I make mistakes, start getting a little lazy, start bending my knee, or excuse me, start straightening my knees out, start getting a little lazy in my stance, oh, oops, there's my feedback letting me know that I messed up. So very simple drill, but highly effective if you have trouble keeping your knees bent, keeping your body rounded as you move around in your stance. Now, in regards to keeping your balance solid when you're performing kicks or knees, you obviously can't widen your feet apart because you only stand on one leg. However, the base knee can bend. And the general rule is the lower you kick, the more you have to bend your knee. So for example, if I want to round kick the lower part of this bag, like I'm round kicking somebody in the calf or the knee, watch how my base knee bends a lot. Not only to keep my balance strong, but it also gives me more reach on the kick. If I'm kicking at the waist, I don't have to bend as much, but I still have a slight bend on the knee. Now, keeping the base knee bent is not an ironclad rule on that. If I am kicking higher, like if I'm kicking somebody upside the head, yeah, I will get up on my toes, I will straighten my knee out a lot more, or if I'm kneeing somebody in the face, I'm going to be doing the same thing, but that's the only exception to the rules. For the most part, in a real street fight, real self-defense situation, you should be keeping most of your kicks waist level and below. And with that in mind, any type of kick that's at that height, notice how Maury's keeping this knee bent. If you keep the knee bent throughout the movement, you'll find that you'll have a lot better balance on your knees and kicks. So if you have issues on any kick, doesn't matter what kind of kick it is, just keep the base knee bent and it'll probably fix that problem. So to conclude, if you want to fix just about any balance issue, regardless of the type of combative it is or the type of self-defense technique you're performing, just remember, either get your feet wider apart and or bend your knees to lower your center of gravity. That will fix not everything, but almost every balance issue you might have, as well as other problems. If you were to watch me teach a group class, it looks like I'm just staring at the floor the whole time while the students are performing, but really what I'm doing is I'm looking at their foot placement, their footwork, and how they're bending their knees. Regardless of the problem the student brings up to me, hey, I can't get, I feel off balance here, or I don't have any speed here, or my power sucks, fill in the blank of what the reason is. The first thing I do, I don't care what technique it is, I'll say show it to me, and I will look at where their feet are at and how their knees are bent. And more times than not, that's usually the culprit behind the problem. Remember, proper foot placement and your balance is the foundation to everything you do. You could build the most beautiful house or home in the world, but if it's on a crooked, sloppy-ass foundation, it will eventually fall apart. Your Krav Maga techniques are exactly the same way. You need to have your feet in the right place, have a solid foundation or balance to work from. If you do that, the speed, the power, the timing, the accuracy, everything else will fall into place afterwards. So I hope this fundamental video helped you out a lot. Keep training hard, and as always, see you next time.